Welcome back to the program. We're glad you've stayed with us. Before our conversation tonight, let me take you to our throwback soundbite for tonight, and it's from the great Ethiopian leader, the Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, during his second state visit to the United States. That is in October 1963. Take a look.
Mr. President, Mrs. Kennedy, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply touched by the generous words of welcome which you have addressed to me, Mr. President, and by the warmth with which the American people have greeted me during the few short hours I have been in the United States. In the decade which has elapsed since my first voyage to America, the face of the globe has been vastly altered. Africa and Asia have been transformed into continents whose people are almost entirely removed from the subjugated status which was the lot of so many of them but a few short years ago. As free men, we Africans are now seeking the unity and the oneness which will enable us to put our freedom to the best use. The service of the peoples of our continent, the defense of right and justice, the protection of the peace.
የህዝባችን ኑሮ ደረጃ ተሻሽሎ ድህነትና ድንቁርና ከዓለም እንዲወገድ ቁርጥ ሐሳብ አድርገናል።
Of course, that forms up our TBT tonight. Now, tonight we're discussing matters economy, to be specific, Kenya's economy. This after the release of Economic Survey 2018 by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. In studio, I have James Gatungu, who is the Director of Production Statistics from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Good evening, James, and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Yusuf.
Fantastic. You're welcome to the program. Now, from the numbers, we're going to get some of the facts and figures from yesterday's economic survey on our screen shortly, so that some of our viewers can have a look at it. Now, from the numbers there, Kenya's economy grew by 4.9% last year. Now, there are those who are saying this is the worst performance, since President Uhuru Kenyatta got into power, and he had promised, between 7 and 10% economic growth. Why is this the case first?
Thank you very much, Yusuf. As you have just mentioned, the economic growth last year recorded a growth of 4.9% compared to 5.7% in the previous year. This was actually as a result of the prolonged dry period in the last year, coupled also with the prolonged election process. Again, also, we realized that the uptake of credit was also a bit low in last year.
Well, there are, of course, those who are saying that this survey paints a very grim picture of Kenya's economy. Let's take a look at how the numbers look like in 2016. Apparently, then, the economy grew by 5.9%. It's now 4.9% in 2017. Now, the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, James, is on record having said yesterday that the projections are that the economy is going to grow by 5.8% 2018. From a mathematics point of view, from a statistics point of view, how practical is that?
Thank you very much, Yusuf. Maybe one of the issues that I would like to put straight here is that Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is not responsible for projection, but we normally provide indicators to be able to guide policymakers and other economists to be able to carry on with their functions in terms of coming up with the policies to guide the process. But looking at what actually happened last year, we realized that most of the part of last year was a bit dry. And as you also realized, we faced a lot of challenges, including even getting water even to drink. Alongside also with that, we also faced some challenges, including also of getting power, hydro-generated power, as a result of which now we are able to substitute that with the thermal oil generation, which is also a bit expensive. So considering that the way we have started this year, we have plenty of rainfall, which is likely, according to the weather forecasts, to be distributed across the country. This is likely to be able to push, one, agriculture production, two, electricity sector, and three, also the water supply in the country. Again, also alongside also with that, the government, through the focus of the Big Four, is also putting a lot of investment in the three broad areas that are key. That is manufacturing, agriculture and nutrition, again also the issue of housing.
And universal health, of course. Those forms the big four. Now, James, you've already said that you don't do projections, yes. You offer statistics. Let me take you quickly through some of the statistics in the report yesterday. If you look at the agriculture sector, for example, that is the mainstay. Basically, this is the backbone of Kenya's economy. And it's the largest employer. This is one of the hardest hit sectors from your report yesterday. Now, it indicates that the sector grew at a painfully slow rate. If you look at the manufacturing sector, these are also another major employer, especially in urban centers. It experienced its slowest growth in 10 years. That is about 0.2%. Now, on the contrary, from your statistics, you're saying that about 800,000, 900,000 jobs, were there in 2017. So, from a statistics point of view, how practical is that once again?
If you look at the analysis of the reporter, which we are able to analyze by sectors, it really reveals that most of this employment was mainly coming from the wholesale and the retail trade, which is one of the activity that, one of the sectors where Kenyans are really engaged on. You find if Kenyans are not able to secure a job, they resort to small businesses. And that is one of the areas that the number was absorbed. Also looking through other sectors, you find also the ICT sector also carried another chunk of the employees. And also looking also at the side of the government side, we realized that there were also some increment in some of the essential services. That is the health, education, and also the defense.
Yes. And Mr. James, as we wrap up, perhaps can you tell us how Kenya fares with other countries in Africa, especially the East African countries, because reports are that we're losing the coffee market to Ethiopia, Kenya is losing foreign investments to Rwanda. How is Kenya's economy in comparison to these other countries?
Considering the size of Kenya economy, it is still kind of growing at a better rate, considering that its huge economy compared to other East African countries. But there's still a lot that we are putting in place through the various interventions to be able to ensure that growth is actually enhanced.
Thank you very much, James Gatungo, for your input. He's the Director of Production Statistics from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Now, over to our next topic tonight, and the government has launched an operation to weed out foreigners who are working in the country illegally. Now, the Interior CS Fred Matiang'i Friday said a scrutiny will be conducted in 60 days, after which a swoop will be carried out to remove those who do not desire to be in the country. Dr. Matiang'i said the 60 days will allow the verification of the foreigners who are working legally and be given new work permits. Dr. Matiang'i said official government records show that there are about 34,000 foreigners working in Kenya, but he says, quote unquote, we know that is not true. The real figure is that there are probably over 100,000, which means there are people doing jobs the Kenyans can do. Let's listen in to what he had to say exactly.
That there are 34,000 foreigners working in Kenya. You and I know that is not true. The real figure is that there are probably over 100,000, which means there are people doing jobs that Kenyans can do. And they have come in through back doors, through windows, and they have obtained what they purport to be work permits, but they're not work permits. So I am announcing, and I'm taking advantage of this opportunity to say this. From today going forward, we are going to give an electronic work permit card. We'll give a window of 60 days to give a card to everyone who's supposed to have a work permit in Kenya, genuinely. We'll make the exercise painless because we are going to approach it from a two-track perspective. Track A are almost the automatic entitlements. The missionary doctors who are working at Tenwek Hospital, for example, those are almost automatic entitlements. The foreign professors who have been hired in our universities, for instance, or people who come in by investment companies.
Once again, to help us discuss this matter, I have George Mushe, who is a man who understands, matters immigration with me in studio. George, good evening. Good to see you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Yusuf.
Now, George, let me begin from that last bit that the Interior CS talked about. He's saying that he's aware that there are about 34,000 foreigners who are working in the country, but there are about 100,000 in the country. Perhaps there's about 70 or 80,000 who don't have work permits. As a person who understands immigration, perhaps what are you reading in this? Let's begin from there.
Thank you, Yusuf. I think we need to put into context what the CS is talking about, that there are many, I mean, in as much as we have about 34,000 people that are on lawful work permit, there are very many others that are not lawfully here. And if I listen to him correctly, I think the intention is to make sure that if you're in this country and you have to work, then you're properly regulated, you're properly processed. Mm-hmm. And I know we do not have the complete picture in terms of what the CS is intending to do, because it's only what we've seen in the media. But I would like to say the following. And I know there's a lot of tension in the country, especially on people that are working, are foreign nationals working in the country, and they're in two classes. There are people that are legitimately on a work permit or passes or, you know, a situation that allows them to work. But there are very many of them that he spoke about that are here unlawfully. Mm-hmm. And I would like to say the following. If you know you came here, you applied for a work permit properly or a pass, and you are properly processed, mm-hmm. you do not need to worry, because I listened to him and he says they will, of course, embark on a verification process and issue e-work permit for these people, and it will be painless. That's what I heard him say.
Yes, and Judge, there's something else he said, that they're going to have some sort of stringent measures in the immigration department. And he talked about, you know, some of these foreign workers who come to Kenya and do jobs the Kenyans themselves can do. So does it mean that those who are going to be locked out? That those who are going to be locked out, rather?
Thank you, Yusuf. I think if you look at the immigration laws and regulations, I mean, all those criteria in terms of determining who qualifies to be given a work permit in Kenya mm-hmm. are already set out. What the CS is saying is that they will look at those now in a strict manner to ensure that if you're coming to do a job that surely a Kenyan is qualified to do, and by you being allowed to do that job, you rob that Kenyan that opportunity, then you will not be considered. However, again, there are very many people who are here illegally. I think those are the lowest hanging fruit. I mean, and I think the CS was saying in a later clip that he will be using the police and all agencies to make sure that those people are either processed properly or they are taken out of this country. And having said that, I think, yes, it is true, there are very many people in some of these companies that are doing very manual or very small jobs that Kenyans can do. So I think it will make sense for the government to look at all those, particularly in terms of things that, I mean, I've seen people in the city from some countries hawking and selling equipment and some, even cars. I mean, there are people that sell cars here. I don't know how you can justify that you're a foreign national and you're applying for a permit to sell cars mm-hmm. that Kenyans can sell. Or, for instance, you're opening hardware or a shop in Biashara Street and tell us you need a work permit. Mm-hmm. But then again, obviously, if you look at Kenya, Kenya is a regional hub. Kenya is a country that the president has been marketing as one that is open for business and inviting people to come and invest in the country. So that, Yusuf, means people move with their money. If someone is coming to invest here, he will either come here or will identify people that will come and protect their interest. However, that is not to mean that they should not identify Kenyans to do some of these jobs. Mm-hmm. So I think on the overall, it is very true. Immigration is not for individual country. You cannot speak about immigration in isolation. For mm-hmm. instance, if you talk about in the East African region, and the president, when he was sworn in, he did say that East Africans will come in and work in Kenya as if they are Kenyans, okay? So what that means is there are very many East Africans, Tanzanians, Rwandese, and Ugandans that are here, for instance. Are we going to chase them away? I do not know.
That informs my second question, George. We are in an integration era where people are focusing or, thinking of, how Africans can have inter-trade kind of deals where people can move in and out of these countries, freely. So how will this directive sit with these other countries, especially those in the East African region? Should we have any reason to think of a backlash, perhaps?
Thank you, Yusuf. First, I would like to say the following, and I do not speak for Dr. Matiang'i.
I know.
He is a very able spokesperson. But I don't think Dr. Matiang'i's statement was to the effect that we are going to chase people away. I don't think he did say that. He said people that come to work in Kenya need to be regulated. They need to make, to meet the basic requirement in terms of applying and the permit and then complying with the law. That being said, I don't think, because what we have seen before is, if you, for instance, single out some people from some countries and chase them away in a manner that is felt to be unfair, those countries will, some of them hit back very hard. We know Nigeria is known for that. But I think within East Africa, and Kenyans have also been complaining about how they have been treated in other countries like Tanzania and a few other countries. So I don't think it is entirely wrong for the CS to say they will regulate. But if regulation means singling some people from some countries and chasing them away, even when they have lawful statuses, I don't think that is what he meant.
Yeah, of course, you can't speak for him, but I'm sure you can either agree or disagree with some of the statement he made. And he's saying basically that there are some foreigners who've come to Kenya and basically they're taking jobs the Kenyans themselves can do.
To that extent, I will agree with Dr. Matiang'i. I'm a Kenyan as well. I work for an American company, and I'm imagining if this company insisted on bringing an American to do that job, I would not be working. So to that extent, I want to agree with Dr. Matiang'i. Where we have Kenyans that are qualified for this kind of jobs, they need to be given first priority, because it makes a lot of business sense. Because when you bring a foreigner, it is not cheap, Yusuf. The work permit is about 400,000 for 2 years. You are looking at other things like flight ticket and many, many other things. So if really you're looking to work and to do business and you want to look for a Kenyan that is qualified, it makes a lot of sense. However, we have to say companies would have some interest that they would like to preserve. For instance, if you're investing in a country, you want to have your finance guy, you want to have your operations guy, you want to have your CEO, so that they can come and set up and eventually look for skills within Kenya to hire. So to that extent, I agree with him. But to the extent, which I don't think is what he said, for instance, if someone came to Kenya, applied for work permit within the prescribed manner, it went through the committee, was approved, the person paid the money, and was given a work permit lawfully, such a person has a legitimate expectation that they will work on that work permit until it expires or until it is cancelled within a lawful manner. And having said that, I want to say it is actually not possible or true to say that in the last 2-3 years that Kenya has been dishing out work permit. And I say this with a lot of confidence because the immediate former director of immigration, who is now the PS for immigration, is a man that has done a lot of changes. And he has been there for about 3 years. I can tell you the changes he has instituted. In the last 3 years, it was not possible for you to go and acquire work permit in Kenya in a very haphazard manner. He was in control, and there was a lot of checks and balance. And having said that also, I would like to say, a work permit, for instance, an ordinary one would go for 2 years. So therefore, what that would mean is if the government will decide that certain categories of work permit will not be reissued to people holding them, it's very easy for government to just say, when your permit expires, we will not renew because we would like for Kenyan to take over that position. That would be a better way of resolving that matter. That's what I think.
One final question, George. Of course, you talked about putting up stringent measures at the immigration department. This is a development or a directive that is not going to affect countries like Rwanda and Uganda, right?
As you would know, Yusuf, all East African countries, if you're working in Kenya and you come from all the East African countries, you do not... You are required to apply for a work permit, but you don't pay for it. I think what we know is there is a coalition of the willing between Kenya and Rwanda, but that has not affected the work permit. It's more about the visa and people traveling to either of the countries using the ID. But in terms of the work permit and the capacity to work in Kenya, every East African national is treated the same, whether you're from Tanzania, South Sudan, or Rwanda, or Burundi.
Thank you very much, George Mushe, for your input. Then, earlier on our Twitter poll, we did ask you if you believe Kenya is on the right path to economic growth and stability. Remember, this is a question that is informed by yesterday's development where the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics released the Economic Survey 2018, which had some grim picture. with respect to Kenya's economy. And 42% of you said yes, and 58% of you said no. At Ian Joseph says growth can be experienced now that the country has some political stability. At Bill Juma says it's evident that some counties are proceeding well. A good example is Kakamega. And then Vivin says no, corruption is the biggest threat in the country right now. One final one. From Nahenza Mwanza, who says, if borrowed money was used for the purpose that it was borrowed for, this will automatically be a yes. With the accounts we've seen, however, I'm afraid in the future we'll have so many debts and nothing to show for it. Many thanks for your feedback there. And that brings us to the end of our program tonight. Remember, this program is aired every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 11 p.m. Now, let me leave you with our proverb of the day. Bye-bye.